Marriage isn't easy, and ours has had its share of struggles. My husband and I have our differences. He likes to be in control, always wants things done a certain way, and sometimes it feels like I can't breathe without him watching over my shoulder. He tries to rein it in, to loosen his grip, and I know he's been making an effort. But no matter how much we try, we always end up back in the same place. And now we're not speaking. 3 days ago, something shifted. I know why. He found something tangible. It's not the first time. There's history. I've made mistakes before. I've had conversations I shouldn't have, let my attention wander where it didn't belong, entertained moments of connection outside of this marriage that I should have shut down. I know he's been suspicious, had his doubts. Sometimes he goes looking. Every time he does, I put my guards back on. I take a step back from what I'm doing, hide all my tracks, and start doing what I should be doing, being a wife, a good one at that too. I start being attentive to him and to our household. After some time, he halts his looking. Never completely though, just not meticulously as before. I go back to my ways. Rinse and repeat for the past 4 years. I know someone would think, it's never just words on a screen, it's confirmation. Confirmation that I don't respect him, that I don't care, that I don't love him the way he wants me to. That's not true, but I knew what I was doing. Every message, every joke that blurred a line, every flirtation, I knew. I can't pretend I didn't. And now, here we are. When I got home last night, I could feel it. He knew. I don't know how much he saw, if he read every word or if he stopped himself before it got worse. But he saw enough to ascertain him that I've done this before, that this is what he's been looking for all along. Enough to make him wonder if this relationship is worth it. He hasn't confronted me yet. He doesn't have to. The silence between us is heavy, thick with everything we're not saying. He's waiting, letting his anger simmer, letting the betrayal settle in. And me? I don't know what to say. I could try to explain, to tell him it didn't mean anything, that it didn't go that far. But that's not true. It went very far. So many times over the past 3 months. Some days I skipped work just to meet the other man. We spent so much time together, did so much together, talked so often. It was not an affair, it was a whole relationship. I know he won't believe me even if I lie. I think he knows a lot more than he's letting on. Is he wondering if this marriage is worth staying in? He wants the truth, but I don't think he's ready for it. I don't think I am either, because once it's out there, once we finally say what we both know, there's no going back. So we sit in silence, waiting for the moment it all falls apart. Update, he sat me down. No yelling, no accusations flying across the room, just a quiet, steady voice that told me he knew, told me he'd had enough, told me divorce was coming. I didn't argue, I didn't even try. Because what could I say? That it didn't mean anything? That it wasn't what it looked like? That I still loved him? None of it would matter. He was past the point of listening, and maybe I was past the point of fighting for something that had already crumbled. So now I'm here, at the crossroads. It's funny in a bitter kind of way. I should be devastated, right? But all I can think about is how much I've hated being his wife. Not because he's cruel, not because he's some kind of monster, but because he's never been what I needed. Never been the man I wanted him to be. And maybe I should have left first. Maybe I should have been the one to say I was done. Because let's be real, he was a bad husband. Maybe not in the ways that make people gasp and clutch their pearls, but in all the quiet, insidious ways that grind you down over time. The kind that don't leave bruises but still leave scars. He didn't listen. He thought he did, but he never really heard me. Every time I tried to open up, to tell him how I felt, it was like talking to a wall. He'd nod, he'd say the right things, but nothing ever changed. He didn't want to know me, not really. He wanted a version of me that fit into the life he built, and anytime I didn't fit, I was the problem. I think about the nights I laid next to him, trying to talk, trying to reach him, and he just tuned me out, more interested in his phone, his games, anything but me. I think about all the times I needed support, needed comfort, and he either dismissed me or made me feel like a burden. I think about how he never saw me, not really, not as a person, not as his wife, not as someone worth putting in effort for. He'd say he loved me, but only when I asked. Only when I forced the words out of him, like some chore he had to check off a list. But love isn't something you have to remind someone to show you. He didn't support me, not in the ways that mattered. Sure, he paid bills, made sure we weren't drowning, but that's just maintenance, not love. I carried the weight of this marriage emotionally, always the one trying to fix things, to smooth things over, to make us work when he barely lifted a finger, saying he was too tired from work. He didn't love me the way I needed to be loved. When he told me he's divorcing me, I told him I hated him more than I ever told him I loved him. And the worst part? I don't think he cared. He was distant, detached, always keeping a part of himself locked away. He used to be different, used to try, but over time he just stopped. He started looking at me with scrutiny, with some distaste hidden behind his eyes. And when I looked at him, I stopped seeing my husband. I started seeing a stranger I happened to live with. And now he's done. So why do I feel like I've lost something when I should feel free? Why do I feel stuck when I should be running out the door, laughing, relieved? Maybe because the choice isn't mine. Maybe because I hate that he got to be the one to end it. Maybe because deep down I wanted him to fight for me, but he won't. And maybe he never did. So now I have to figure out where to go from here. Not as his wife, not as his problem, not as the woman waiting for him to change, just me. And I don't even know who that is anymore. Story 2, it's been a few days since I told my boyfriend about the one-night stand. I don't know how to put into words what these past few days have been like. How every second has felt like a mix of regret, shame, and desperation to fix something I don't even know how to fix. When I told him, it was like watching something break in real time. He didn't even ask me why at first. He just sat there silent, and in that silence I realized how deep I had cut him. Eventually, he told me he needed space and asked me to sleep in the guest room. I didn't argue. I knew it was the least I could do. That night, I lay there in a bed that wasn't ours, replaying everything in my head. The moment it happened, the moment I chose to betray him, and every little excuse I told myself leading up to it. The justifications, the rationalizations, all the ways I made it okay in my head when it never, ever was. I don't even know why I did it. That's not to say I don't have reasons, but none of them justify what I did. I was feeling disconnected. I was feeling unwanted. I was feeling like I needed something. But none of that makes it okay. None of that excuses throwing away the trust of someone who has loved me through everything, who has always been in my corner. The worst part? I never even thought about what it would do to him while it was happening. Not really, not until after, when the weight of it hit me like a freight train. The next day, he barely spoke to me. The silence was suffocating, but I knew I had no right to push him to talk before he was ready. I spent the whole day in my own head, flipping between feeling like the worst person in the world and desperately wanting to tell him how sorry I was. But sorry feels so empty when you've already done the damage. Yesterday, we sat down and actually talked. It was raw, painful. He had questions, and I answered every single one, no matter how much it hurt. He deserved that much. The worst part was seeing the hurt on his face, the way his eyes would flicker with pain at my answers, like every word was another cut. I wanted to hold him, to reach out and tell him how much I love him, how much I hate what I did to him. But I knew that wasn't what he needed. What he needed was honesty, and I owed him that more than anything else. And then something unexpected happened. Later that night, we sat on the couch, and for the first time in days, we actually existed together. We watched TV in the same room. At one point, I made a dumb joke, and he laughed, just a little. But it was there. It was fleeting, but it reminded me that maybe, there's still something left to fight for. When he was heading up to bed, he hesitated for a second before telling me I could sleep in there if I wanted. And God, I wanted to. I wanted to crawl in beside him and feel like we were us again, even just for a moment. But I also knew it wasn't the right time. I told him I didn't think we were ready for that yet, and I don't know if that was the right call or not. It wasn't because I don't want to be close to him. I do, more than anything. But I don't want to rush this, to force normalcy when we're anything but normal right now. He needs to heal in his own way, at his own pace. Right now, I'm just trying to focus on what I can do to support him, to show him I'm not running from this, that I'm here, that I'll take whatever anger, sadness, or pain he throws my way because I deserve it. I don't expect him to forgive me overnight. I don't even expect him to want to be with me long-term right now. But I do know that if there's even the smallest chance of rebuilding, I have to do the work. I have to face what I did, to sit with the shame, to become someone who won't ever let this happen again. But I also don't know how to do that. I don't know how to hold all of this at once. My regret, my love for him, my guilt, my hope, my fear that I've destroyed this beyond repair. I feel like I'm fumbling in the dark, and I'm terrified that no matter what I do, it won't be enough. For those who've been here before, who've hurt the person they love and tried to pick up the pieces, how do you navigate this? How do you support your partner without overwhelming them? How do you show them you're committed to change when your actions have already spoken louder than any words ever could? I know I can't undo what I did, but I don't want this to be the end of us. I just don't know how to make sure it isn't.